So, Mr. Rangnick, thank you very much for talking with us today. You've had tremendous success as both as a football coach as well as a sporting director for Leipzig, Salzburg, and other teams. So we would like to ask you a little bit about that process, and especially concerning the treatment and how you take care of the players. And so we understand that you have this cooperation with Dr. Mosseter. And could you tell us a little bit about how you came to meet Dr. Mosseter?
I think it's some 15 years ago, 2005, 2006, when for the first time I had massive problems with my spine, prolapse, and all the experts advised me to have an operation. So I decided not to have an operation, but go to Kurt Mosseter. He was recommended to me by a close friend of mine. And thank God I decided to go to Kurt. Within 1 week, he told me here in Constance, listen, we won't need an operation. And after 6 weeks, I was fully fit again, having no problems at all. And from then on, we were in regular contact. He became more or less a part of the medical department in Hoffenheim and also in Leipzig later on. I tend to call him the Red Adair of our medical departments. Whenever we had problems with players, we asked him to come to either Hoffenheim or Leipzig and help us to get the players fully fit again.
And could you tell us a little bit about how that has been for the teams to have this connection with Dr. Mosseter in these situations where you have difficult injuries, for example?
Yeah, in the end, it was my job to introduce Kurt. I mean, in the first place, I had to ask Kurt if he was ready and willing to help us, which he was and which he did. And then I spoke to the team doctors of all our teams, introduced Kurt to them. And from then on, he was more or less more than welcome and part of our medical department. And also players come to visit him here in Constance, even before the season, before pre-season starts. Quite a few players just make an appointment with him here in Constance, coming for a couple of days before the beginning of the pre-season time.
And what has that meant for your players?
I mean, in the end, in football and in top-class football, it's about avoiding injuries and about precautionary treatments so that injuries don't happen at all. And I can give you an example from last season. In the last 3 weeks of our season, after having played 56 competitive games, we had not a single injured player in the whole team. And this was just due to the massive job that all the people, all our physios, the whole medical department had done in the months before. I mean, if you have, after so many competitive games, you don't have a single injured player. Some people must have made quite a few things in the right way.
Exactly. And could you tell me a little bit about when you have different players and you develop these players, what are key elements, do you think, that are needed and often overlooked by teams or trainers and so on, that is very important to their development?
I mean, where we are a little bit different from other teams is that we are only looking for very young players. The younger, the better. So we are looking for highly talented players between 16 and 17 and 22, 23 years of age when we sign them. We are looking at the different aspects of what a talent really means: physical talent, mentality, which for me is the talent of the character of a person. But of course, pace is a massive element in football. In modern football, if a player is not really fast, it's difficult. Then at least he has to be fast in his cognition and in his mind. And once we found players like that, we are trying to convince them to join us in our club. And and then obviously we just suppose that development of football consists of a jigsaw of 500 pieces. We try to offer and have all those 500 pieces available for the players. And even how less influence this piece might have, we still try to have it in our portfolio and offer it to the player. And in the end, it's up to the players to decide which pieces they really want to make use of.
So you mentioned this about being quick in the head and to adapt quick to the play that's going on. Do you have anything specific that you are training them on to be better at these types of things?
I mean, in fact, all our trainings on the pitch, when we train tactics and strategy, our style of football, it's all about exaggerations. So We play with the so-called provocational rules. Those rules force the player to play in a way that is even more difficult than the game on Saturday. So by that we try to train the brain. In fact, it's about overloading the brain and trying to put the brain to learn and adapt in situations when you are under pressure regarding space and time. And it's about finding solutions in those situations in training, so that in fact on game day, on Saturday, the players even think, it feels easier than in training. And that's most of the training sessions when we train tactically, what our training is about.
And talking about some of the concepts, Dr. Moseter talks about eye tracking exercises. Is that something that you have found value in for your club?
One of our 500 pieces I spoke about. Of course, I mean, I don't think that there are many clubs in Europe that even know what eye tracking means, but obviously in football it's relevant that players, that they really anticipate, that they see early enough what's going on around them. And we always tend to speak about a 360-degree radar around them. Some players, top world-class players like Lionel Messi or even one of our players, Naby Keita, they have this 360-degree radar automatically, but other players, they have to learn and get better in this area, and that's why we try to make use of all the relevant elements, and eye tracking is one of them, that the players train to anticipate and to see properly and early enough.
And you also mentioned this mentality of the players. So what in your mind is the proper state of mind of a football player?
Yeah, for me, mentality means the talent of the personality and the character of a player. And all those players who have this mentality are never content. They are trying to get better every day in all the relevant aspects. No matter if it's tactical training, if it's physical training, if it's nutrition, if it's how can I make use of our sports psychologist. All the relevant elements, players who have the top mentality are never content, are trying to get better every day.
So could you tell me a little bit about the aspects of, for example, dietary change and keeping a good diet? How does that impact the player and when they are on the field?
I mean, this is also something that we started in 2011, actually in Leipzig and in Salzburg. At the start of each season, we are trying to examine each player. And by examine each player, I mean we take blood, we take even saliva, we take urine, and we examine every single aspect of the human body, including the hormones. And then each player gets a feedback from this examination, even on allergies, on things that their body lacks. And in the end of this process, they get a personal, individual nutritional plan. And each player, for me, nutrition is also something that needs to be individual. In most teams I worked before, all the players got the same kind of food. This is nonsense. I mean, in the same way that they get an individual training plan regarding their physique, their body, their tactical behavior, they also need an individual plan regarding their nutrition. And this is exactly what we implemented in 2011, and we still do every season. So if you look into our canteen, we have 5 or 6 different meals available for each player, no matter if he's a vegan or if he doesn't eat fish or meat, or if he cannot eat lactose or gluten. So for each player, we have the individual food available.
And how important do you think this is, that the player gets the concept of eating?
I mean, in the end, one thing is that it should be healthy, that they should get the right things. But on the other hand, this doesn't help if it doesn't taste well. So then you do need to make sure that it's not only healthy, but that the players like it.
Yep.
And I remember the evening when our players had their boxes and took the rest of the food home to their family. On that day, I knew, okay, they got it. I know that they like it, because otherwise they wouldn't take the food back home to their families.
So regarding natural eating, or glycoplan as it's also known as, has there been any kind of resistance towards this?
I mean, when we started all this in 2011 in Salzburg and Leipzig, it was completely new to any player we had at the time. And of course, if you implement something completely new that they haven't been confronted with in the past, there are some, well, not limitations, but there is some resistance. So you need to convince the players. And to convince them means theoretically, in theory, convince them so that they know why we are doing this. There need to be explanations to them why we present this food and not that food. But in the end, the most important part is that it tastes well. Not only should it be healthy, because they know that it's healthy, but if they don't like it, they won't accept it. Mm-hmm. And we managed, due to Kurt's knowledge, and but also we brought the right cooks on board. So we not only scouted players and coaches, we also scouted cooks in the end. So we needed to find the right persons on board to prepare this food, and not only prepare the food, but also explain to the players why we present them this food and not that food. So right now, I think in both clubs in Salzburg and Leipzig, Red Bull can be lucky to have, well, probably the best possible people on board.
So many clubs throughout Europe are having a lot of problems with a lot of injury. So from your point of view as a director, as a trainer, what are important aspects if you see a player keep getting injured over and over again, the same injury or different injuries? What are key things that you think about in those moments to help improve them?
I mean, it's not only that he should get fit in the shortest possible time. Of course, this is the difference between top class football, but also other sports, not only football, between those people and athletes and normal people. I mean, we even train and try to play players in the normal world. They would be ill for the next 2 months, but obviously you also have to think of the long-term careers of players. So if we have a player where we know there is a massive problem behind it, we try to solve the problem and not let him get back on the pitch before the problem has really been solved. And as we know, in many cases, players get treatment just to try to solve not the problem behind it, but to solve and get rid of the pain. And if you get rid of the pain, in most cases, you haven't solved the real problem. So we are trying to find the problem, and this is also something that I like about Kurt, that with him it's never about solving and get rid of the pain, but always trying to find the real basic of the problem. And this is what we are trying to do with all our players. And on the other hand, all the training sessions, I mean, this is something that has changed dramatically in the last 10 years. And I can judge that because I've been a coach even 30 years ago. Nowadays, our fitness coaches tell us, the first team coaches, how much intensity and how much fast runs and even quick runs we have available in each training session. And then, after knowing this amount of intensity and meters, we prepare the training session within this. So this is, I mean, had somebody told me this 10 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it, but this is reality in football nowadays. And since we do that and follow that, we have dramatically reduced the number of injuries.
So following this idea that you're not only thinking regarding the pain, but the problem as a whole, how it has developed, have you seen any changes to how well the player can perform when you are not only focusing on pain, but the function as a whole?
I mean, the new generation of players are fully aware of the meaning of their physicality and their body. And they are ready to invest things in that, not only regarding nutrition, but also training. And this is why some of the players even call court before the start of preseason and sacrifice a week of their precious holiday and even come to court to Constance 1 week before preseason starts. I don't know how many players you would have found 25 years ago doing that before preseason. But the new generation of players are clever enough. They know how important this is, that they invest into their last 10 or 15 years of their career. And this implies nutrition as well as the quality of training. So as coaches, you need to tell the players why you do this and that in that way, and not only be the coach who tells the players, listen, I'm the coach and you have to do what I tell you to do. And this is also something that has changed in the last 10 years.
So you talk about empowerment of the players. So how important is it to get the player on board to understand the importance of being physically fit, but also taking care of injuries, taking care of their health and diet? How important is this educational part of the players?
Very important. And due to the fact that since the year 2000, all the clubs in Germany have to have an academy, most of those players have been educated and developed in those academies. And even players from foreign countries have also gone through this process of an academy in their countries and clubs. And this helps you, obviously, to develop and educate and teach those players. But even if they haven't been taught in that way before they join us, at the latest, on day one, when they start to come to us, they will find out. And I mean, I come across so many players on my mind who have developed in a way that I would have never have believed it, and developed into a top-class professional football player in all aspects of football.